Hi and welcome. I'm your host, Phil Klein, and today I'm here with Mark Mueller-Eberstein, a business leader, executive, and prognosticator of many trends business that have come to fruition in the present and likely will in the future. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Absolute pleasure to be here back with you, Phil.
So great to see you. I am wondering what kinds of business trends you are seeing today that you see as significant, worth paying greater attention to.
I think we're living, of course, in the overstressed, interesting times, but a lot of these things are not that new. They have been just amplified over the last, I would say, 8-10 months, of course. Um, when I worked at Microsoft in 2005 in the office organization, we were looking at the new world of work. People would work remotely. We would trying to telecommunicate more, travel less, and a lot of the tools actually were in place 15 years ago. I founded my own company, EdgeTech, 10 years ago and founded it virtually. So I'm working from my home office for the last 10 years using cloud computing communication tools to really bring everything together. Of course, we have come quite far over the last decade and especially over the last 8 months. To get all collectively into this new world and also struggle with some of the challenges in there.
What kind of businesses or business sectors do you see navigating this change or leading through this change particularly well?
I think the technology, of course, has been at the cutting edge for many, many years. We were always, not only from a technology adoption perspective, but also how we work. People like using a time card to stamp in and focusing on how many times somebody spends in their office versus what the real results are. And I think the tech industry has taken that lead for decades now, and we will see it in more and more industries. That companies shifted completely to a new style of management that for them was very new. For a lot of us was quite of the norm. We are focusing about what people deliver and what impact they draw.
Are there any particular signature qualities to that management style that's particularly successful that you could describe briefly?
I think it all starts with trust. I think you have to understand you're working with people that trust each other and have confidence that they are aligned on the goal of developing or delivering optimal results. It's not about how many hours did I spend on a PowerPoint or in an office or on an Excel spreadsheet. It's really about, do I deliver the value that my clients need, my customers need, my team needs, and can they rely on me to be there for them and support them?
And what kind of businesses are you seeing having a particularly difficult time or perhaps leading the change poorly and either lagging or just having real difficulty in these times?
Phil, change is hard. We have said this in 2012 in our TED Talk. And it's really difficult to figure out what you need to do if you don't see the end vision. What we see in 2020 is a very strong bifurcation between organizations that are capable of embracing this change because they know where they want to go. They see this new world of work we mentioned before. They know that what steps to take to get into those directions. And the traditional, maybe even like patriarchal organizations where it's important that everybody meets at 8 o'clock in the morning and doesn't leave before 5, where creativity, optimal results are less a primary focus to start with. And it's interesting. I mean, if you look at companies in 2020 that are doing well, those are the large corporations that have structured HR, good IT support, long-term focus on one side. On the other hand, you have people that are called gig economy or people that have always been very flexible. They've worked virtually. They don't have an office anymore, sometimes for a decade like myself, but even other. They are actually adapting quite well. They are used to work in a global environment, getting resources and intellectual capabilities from where they are on an ongoing base. Where we really see the challenges is in the middle. The traditional companies that are brick and mortar, that have not been familiar with this kind of new style of management and engagement and management by objectives. Those I think struggling most, and those are economically hurting most as well. And I think that's unfortunately a trend we have seen over many, many decades. Every time there is a big change happening, the traditional established structures that having the hardest time to really move from the old world into the new world that is happening around them.
And what are some of the broader business landscape issues that you see as key challenges or opportunities?
I think the key challenge starts mostly with ourselves. It's like, do we want to see transformation happening around us? Usually we like our world, we like it's comfortable. And it's hard to step out of it and see what's really happening around us. I mean, we have seen it from the airline industry, where it's like it was very clear from the beginning that travel would be completely transforming in 2020, and it's never going to come back to where it was in 2019, at least for many, many years. So not trying to, as I said, to fight the situation or ignoring it or closing my eyes, but really thinking out 12 months, 15 months, even 24, 36 months out. What does this mean for my business? How can I move forward? The hotel and the hospitality industry also, as well. On the other hand, we have events. The traditional event organizers are completely taken over by completely stunned of what's happening around them. They're not used to it. On the other hand, you have technology platforms. I know we all talked about Zoom, but you have things like Hopin and a couple of other startups really that exploded in their usage and creating environments that, yes, they were really, really rough in March, but by August, September, October, these things work actually quite well, where you have now access online to some of the best content you ever had, often for free, often more than you can even digest on a day-to-day basis. Being able to see those opportunities of transformation and turning them into success.
So it almost sounds like you really need this ability to see through the ambiguity as one of the drivers for success. Are there other drivers for success that you're learning about now, or that you're at your learning edge with in terms of business success drivers?
Some of them are timeless. I think a lot of it is about collaboration and how it's always a team that makes a success. So how do you work with others? How do you bring out the best of the folks you work with? You have to assume that everybody wants to create a new, better world, product, customer experience. And as long as you're figuring out how not to step on each other's toes too much while challenging and getting the things better, I think you have huge opportunities to drive here.
What you're describing sounds a lot like agility, business agility, business transformation, digital transformation. Do you see this, the movement towards agility, something that continues to evolve and develop now? Are there new aspects to it?
Absolutely. I think the startup culture that we have really embraced over the last decades is more important now than it ever has been. I mean, as an angel investor, I do work with startups on a global scale every day. And it always comes down to the leadership team and how agile are they to having a clear vision where they want to go, but then how agile are they on their journey to adjust to market forces and move forward. And coming back, I said, it's even on the investor side over the last months, what we have seen is traditional businesses that have been dabbling along for a while have a really hard time of raising more capital. On the other hand, we have new companies going out, and there is a lot of resources available for them, and we see those startups turning into real businesses very, very quickly.
And are there any new ideas that you see emerging in the business sector that have been either surprising to you, or that you see are really just finding new pathways to follow that haven't been traditionally available?
I mean, there are a couple of things I've been very passionate about over the last decades. I mean, technology, of course, is one of them. We talked about like the people working together in a collaborative environment. That's a lot about the blockchain space, for example, where you have global communities developing products. There's no centralized headquarter. A lot of decentralized business models are born and built on that side. On the other hand, you have new opportunities that are also around trust. For example, here in the US and a lot of areas worldwide, Costco is one of the largest retail chains, and people trust the products Costco provides. There's a trust relationship that has been built over decades. Now, with the COVID situation, personal protection becomes extremely critical. And where do people go? Well, they try to figure out something online, then realize product might not be as good. But now Costco comes in and provides a trusted solution for their customers and their employees with a company called Filter, FLTR, that didn't exist as a company 12 months ago. It was people that have worked with Costco and had a trusted relationship over decades that saw there is a need for the customers of Costco. There is the people in Costco that need to be supported. We know how to build a trusted supply chain with quality assurance that is going to work for a long-term partnership, and build this all up and delivering those products now across the United States to people, to hundreds of thousands, millions of people.
Wow. So do you see other examples of that kind of a intersection between trust and new technologies emerging more broadly? Or is that Costco example just, an unusual, unique case?
No, I think it's business has always been about trust. I mean, one of the reasons why people said we can't really replicate the in-person meeting virtually, that's up to a degree that's probably true. But having somebody that you trust introduce somebody else opens a lot of doors, and then a virtual meeting might be absolutely fine. In Microsoft, in I think 2005, 2006, we analyzed how teams work together, and we realized that people that at that time, every 6 months, people should meet in person to keep that team feeling, but the rest virtually was totally fine. Now, in the pandemic, we're going longer than 6 months. So I think it will be very interesting to do this study, but there's also generational shift. Between 15 years ago, people like me that are maybe a little bit older in that space, and now we have a new generation that grows up on screens. They are used to building relationships. In my second book called The Digital Cowboys, we had a contributor who basically said, you know what, my son had this gaming friends from all over like Brazil, Germany, and Russia, and they won a global competition. And I just said, let's bring you all together for the summer so you can spend some time together. And the son like, why? It was 10 years ago. I said, well, so you can talk. He said, well, we talk every day, many hours. We don't need to go on a plane and do all these things. But that's a generation that was 10 years ago. So those are the mid-20s now, the folks that are driving businesses, driving new ideas, and developing them. I think I mentioned a company called Hopin. It's a lady in California that realized her mother doesn't have time to go to conferences and she learned so much out of the medical conference. So what did she do? She built a complete business, a conference business where people like her mother that don't have time to get on planes actually can work together. Now, of course, now none of us should go on a plane if it's not absolutely essential based on the CDC guidelines. So we need those kind of platforms to have the conversation and keep collaborating together.
It's funny. It almost sounds as if we're already living in the future that we had imagined now. But that said, there still, must be significant new business insights that are taking shape and potentially new technological advancements that you see on the horizon. What are some of those key advancements that you're hoping to see in the next months and potentially in the next year or plus?
I think one of the things that's, again, through history, efficiency will always increase. And if there are significant inefficiencies in a system, technology will come in, remove the inefficiency, and make things be more productive in one way or the other. And I think we'll see technology accelerating that even more today. In addition to that, though, and that's one of my passions for the last decades, is how do we bring more people into the business world, into the business opportunities? When I started to look into the finance sector, into the blockchain sector, crypto sector, one of the things that really hit me hard originally was that 80+% of the world do not have access to bank accounts, to credit, to insurance. Those things are just off limit for them. They just don't have access. They don't have an identity to be able to do these things. So being able to open up doors, if it's blockchain or not blockchain, but being aware of those opportunities and unlocking that economic potential, if it's finance sector, or if it's like even like a lending platform like Kayak, for example, where we are going to, with microloans, making really impact on individual lives across the globe and lifting them and their families up by economic opportunities. I think those are the things we'll see more and more of.
Are there specific pieces of knowledge, or is there an understanding that you see that you think businesses in general should be investing more into at this time? What knowledge or efforts should companies be putting more attention into?
Um, Obviously, technology, collaboration, how do you work together in a remote world? Providing the right technology infrastructure is important, like the right hardware, the right connectivity, which again, in some areas is a real challenge. If you are outside of a big city in the United States, well, it's getting to be really, really hard to have a high-speed connection that is, even in a remote village in South Korea, for example, is absolutely a given. But it's beyond that. It's not only technology. You've probably seen the numbers. People are social animals. So we start to have emotional challenges. People are missing their friends. They're starting to miss the water cooler conversations. How can you replicate this? How can you compensate it? But even how you can do self-care for yourself. How do you be more mindful? How do you be able to take care of yourself, the people you surround yourself with, or you are surrounded with, let's say the family unit? How do you make sure you are really creating an environment that is as healthy as possible and as productive as possible? And it's technology, but far, at least as much, the emotional component.
Well, and this, of course, is not just an individual question; it's a company and a business and a sector question too. I love that,
Absolutely. Sorry. Yeah,
but
no, and
it's
I
so
think you're right.
relatable.
The companies that are understanding that importance, I mean, pointing out in our neighborhood, Microsoft has a big mindful push for the last year, many, many years. And I think they're really building on top of these things and driving it forward.
Well, let me ask you one final question then. If people took the insights that you're sharing really to heart and into their businesses, what do you see unfolding next in the next year or two?
I think the next year or two will be, we will see the little plants coming out, but the real impact, the forest being grown. I think if we look back from 2025, we will see a very different world. We will see a world where I'm positively thinking a lot of economic potential has been unlocked, economic and social potential, where people are hopefully, I think, more collaborative, more open, maybe even better equipped and protected in their environments. But it's for those that are willing to go the new step. We will see, like with all big transformation, a very big chunk of the population that is comfortable enough in the status quo that is not going to take advantage of those opportunities. They're waiting for a world to come back that is never going to come back. They're waiting for the old employment environment, the office to open up again. And very, very few things of these will happen. And they will also be overrun by what's happening in a global scale. I think if we're looking across our own front yard and being connected, which we have the opportunity now on a worldwide level about the innovation, technology-wise, but also work structure, legal structure, all of these things that are happening, we can see where innovation is happening in business innovation, life innovation is happening. And these things are open to nearly all of us if we are willing to see them and go those steps. But if we stay in the wheel of depression, we're not willing to change. I think we're going to be okay for a while, but the rest of the world, and the world meaning could be our neighbors, here locally, or our neighbors on the other side of the planet, which we share this little blue dot with, will have access to the information and the opportunities.
Thank you. That's a really wonderful set of asks. If you were to speak directly to business leaders, what would you want most for them to hear as a kind of an encouragement or a declaration about the state of the future normal that we should be getting ready for, because it's already the forest growing now?
Yeah. I think it is all of our responsibility, business leaders and individuals, to really think about our global community. Think about we're on this spaceship together in the vastness, of nothingness, in building a better future. And I think as hard as these times are, they show us opportunities for better collaboration, being more resourceful, being more careful with what we have, both technology-wise, resource-wise, but also in our social environments, and bringing these things together in forms that are healthier for us and for our planet.
Thank you so much, Mark. This has been an absolute delight. I really value everything that you've brought to this and to all the work that you do. Thank you again.
Phil, it's always a pleasure working with you and the TED community. It has been an honor for me over the last decade, and I'm continue to happy to support it and be part of it.
Thank you so much. All the very best.
Thank you very much, Phil.